Today in Capechi's Corner, we're going to look at special products of polynomials. So we have two different patterns we're going to look at today. The first one is called the sum and difference, and that happens when we have the same exact binomial, but the signs are opposite. So when we do that and we multiply our outside terms and our inside terms when we're using FOIL, they will zero out. So this is what the result is. We don't have a middle term there. Now, in looking at the square of binomial pattern, we have something like a plus b quantity squared, which really means a plus b times a plus b. Now, here is the pattern that you can follow. You take the first term and you square it. You multiply the first and the second term, right? A times b, and then you multiply that by 2. And the reason that happens is because our outside and our inside terms are going to be the same. And then you take your last term and you square it. Now, in most cases, when teachers first start teaching this, we just tell students to use FOIL because it's a little bit easier. But as you get better with these and as you progress through your math careers, students then tend to use the patterns. So we're going to just go through it using FOIL. So I notice on my first one, x times x gives me x squared. My outside term will be negative 9x. My inside term will be positive 9x. And my last term is going to be negative 81. I combine my middle two terms. They're going to zero out. So my final answer is x squared minus 81. Now remember, that happened because I have the exact same binomial with different signs. So that's why the outside and the inside terms zeroed out. Let's try the next one. Same thing. 7a times 7a gives me 49a squared. My outside term gives me plus 14, and we're always going to write our variables alphabetically. My inside term gives me negative 14ab. And my last term gives me negative, and then I have 2 times 2, which gives me 4, and b times b, which gives me b squared. Again, because the binomials are the same except for the sign, the outside and the inside terms are going to zero out. So I'm left with 49a squared minus 4b squared. And that's my final answer right there. Okay, so now in number 3, we have f minus 7 quantity squared. What students want to do by accident, which is incorrect, is they want to square the first term and they want to square the last term and think they're done. But that's not how it works, right? It says here that the whole thing, the whole binomials, f minus 7, is going to be multiplied twice. So the easiest way to do that so you don't make a mistake is just write out the two binomials and then use FOIL. So I have f squared as my first term, my outside term is negative 7f, my inside term is negative 7f, and my last is 49. When I combine those terms, right, this time they don't zero out. My final answer is f squared minus 14f plus 49. So that's my final answer right there. We'll do the same thing with my next one. I have 8p plus 3, and I'm going to write it out so I don't make a mistake. 8p times 8p gives me 64p squared. My outside is 24p, my inside is 24p, and my last is plus 9. So I end up with 64p squared. Now again, my outside and inside terms are going to be the same, so I'm just going to combine them. And there's my final answer right there. All right, moving on, we're going to look at some keystone applications for those living in the state of Pennsylvania and have to take the state test. It says a polynomial expression is shown below. We have that. An expression is simplified right there. That means when it's done, that's what we're going to get. What are the positive values of both m and n? Okay, so it does look confusing, but we're just going to go with what we know, and we're just going to take it one step at a time. So when I have that squared, it means I'm going to multiply mx minus n both times. Now, of course, we would rather deal with numbers, but it's okay. The same thing holds true when we're dealing with variables. So I have two binomials, so I can use FOIL. So mx times mx gives me m squared x squared. My outside terms, again, I'm going to write them alphabetically. I get negative mnx. My inside terms gives me mnx. And my last gives me plus n squared. Now, I know I'm going to combine this. So that gives me negative 2mnx. But you'll see we don't even really need that middle term to figure out what m and n are. Okay, so we're just going to take it one at a time. I notice in my answer that my first term attached to the x squared is going to be 9. So here's my x squared. So I have m squared x squared is equal to 9x squared. Now, I notice that they both have x squared. I'm not going to concentrate on that. I'm just going to concentrate on the m squared is equal to 9. Now, in order to get the m by itself, I need to take the square root of both sides. So m is equal to, remember when you take the square root, you need to do plus or minus 3, so it's positive 3 and negative 3. But in this particular question, it asks for the positive value, so m is going to equal positive 3. I'm going to do the same thing with my n value. So I have n squared here. That's my final answer. And if I go back to the first problem and see that that's going to be equal to 16, right? There's no variable, no x attached. I'm going to take the square root of both sides. And again, n is equal to plus or minus 4 because the question's asking just for a positive value. N is equal to 4. So there's my values for m and n. Okay, similar type problem. We're going to do the same thing. So I'm going to rewrite what I'm looking for, ax plus b and ax minus b. This time my answers are talking about values of a and b. It doesn't specifically say for positive. So again, I'm going to take ax. I'm going to use FOIL. And I have ax times ax gives me a squared x squared. My outside is negative abx. Again, I'm just going to put them all in alphabetical order so I'm consistent. My inside term is going to be positive abx, and my last is going to be negative b squared. Okay, we know these two terms are going to zero out. We can see that. So I'm left with a squared x squared minus b squared. Now I know that's going to be equal to 25x squared. So my first term has the x squared. So I'm going to take a squared x squared is equal to 25x squared. Again, my x squared I can get rid of, so I have a squared is equal to 25. Now, I'm going to take the square root of both sides, so a is equal to plus or minus 5. Now, when I say that, I mean positive 5 and negative 5, so you can write that either way. I'm going to do the same thing for my b squared. So I have negative b squared. I'm going to go to what my value is at the end. Again, there's no x attached. It's just going to be my constant, is equal to negative 100. I'm going to divide both sides by negative 1, and I have b squared is equal to 100. Again, take the square root of both sides, and b is equal to plus or minus 10. Or you can write it like this. B is equal to positive 10 and negative 10. Either way is okay. Okay, moving on. Now we have a word problem here. Kelsey creates a square canvas, so that's going to be important, with sides the length of x plus 5. So anytime I see a figure, I like to draw it. It gives me a good visual. So I have x plus 5. It's square, so each side's going to be the same. I want to know the area of the canvas. So remember that area is equal to length times width. So I'm going to multiply them, x plus 5 times x plus 5. Now they are exactly the same, but I'm just going to use FOIL instead of the pattern. It's a little quicker and a little bit more accurate. My outside's 5x, my inside's 5x, and my last is 25. So I have x squared plus 10x plus 25. Now, it doesn't give me a unit, whether it's inches or meters, but I know area is always going to be squared. So I'm just going to say whatever unit that is, that's going to be squared. And that's my final answer right there. Okay, let's add to that. It says Kelsey adds a 2-inch wide frame. So up here was just the canvas or the picture around all sides of the canvas. Write a polynomial expression in simplified form that, again, we're looking for the total area, this time of the canvas and the frame. So I'm going to draw my square first. And again, I have x plus 5 and x plus 5. Now, when I draw that frame around the whole thing, I'm adding 2 inches everywhere. So there's a 2-inch frame there and a 2-inch frame there. So this whole side becomes x plus, and I have 2 plus 5 plus 2. So that gives me x plus 9. Same thing happens on the other side, right? I add all those together and I have x plus 9. So when I'm finding the area, that's what I'm multiplying. X plus 9 times x plus 9, which gives me x squared plus 9x plus 9x plus 81. So I combine my like terms, And this is what I end up with. Again, area is squared, so I'm just going to write units squared. Okay, thanks so much for stopping by today. You have a great day.